What if painting your house a vibrant blue got you a $550 fine, police threats, and a ruined dream? In Alabama, Jake Miller's splash of color turned into an HOA nightmare. Stay tuned for a story of expression, injustice, and a community's fight to paint their way. In the sunlit suburb of Oak Ridge Hills, Alabama, where cicadas buzzed in the humid air and magnolia trees lined the streets, 46-year-old Jake Miller lived a life of bold creativity. A contractor who specialized in home renovations, Jake had bought his $240,000 single-story home in 2018, a fixer-upper he'd spent years turning into a family haven for his wife Sarah and their 13-year-old daughter, Chloe. On the sweltering morning of June 25, 2026, Jake decided to paint his house a vibrant shade of cerulean blue, the bristles of his paintbrush scraping against the wood with a rhythmic splotch, the fresh scent of paint mixing with the summer air, a burst of personality in the otherwise beige neighborhood. Oak Ridge Hills was governed by a strict homeowners association, led by 67-year-old President Walter Grimes, a retired insurance agent who enforced rules with a rigid hand. Walter saw the neighborhood as a uniform canvas. No bright colors, no deviations, and certainly no unapproved hues that could clash with the aesthetic. The HOA bylaws stated, all exterior paint colors must be pre-approved, with a $550 fine per violation. A rule Walter applied with zero tolerance, insisting only neutral tones were acceptable. That morning, as he drove through the neighborhood in his pickup truck, its engine rumbling softly, he spotted Jake's house, the bright blue paint a glaring violation in his eyes. His face flushed, his hands tightening on the steering wheel, and he muttered to himself, "Blue paint in my neighborhood? That's getting fined, and fast." At 11 a.m., just as Jake dipped his brush into the paint can, the metallic clink of the lid echoing in the heat, the sharp wail of police sirens shattered the morning calm. He paused, paint dripping onto the top with a soft splatter, as a police cruiser rolled into the cul-de-sac, its tires crunching on the pavement, red and blue lights flashing in the bright sunlight. Two officers stepped out, their boots thudding against the ground, the lead officer, 50-year-old Henry Tate, wiping sweat from his brow as he approached. "Sir, we've had a complaint about unapproved paint color," Officer Tate said, his voice gruff and unyielding, cutting through the sound of Jake's paintbrush. Jake's brow furrowed, his hands resting on the ladder as he turned. "A complaint? It's my house. I can paint it how I want," he said, his voice rising with disbelief, the words carrying across the humid air. Walter, who had followed in his pickup, stepped out with a stern expression, clutching a fine notice in his hand, his cowboy hat casting a shadow on the ground. "Your blue paint violates HOA rules and disrupts the neighborhood's look," he declared, his tone sharp and authoritative. "That's a $550 fine, and you'll need to repaint." Jake's eyes widened, his voice shaking as he gestured to his half-painted house. "This is my property. It's just paint. You can't control that," he protested, his words overlapping with the sound of Walter tearing the fine notice from his pad, the paper ripping with a harsh sound. Officer Tate, known in Oak Ridge Hills for his allegiance to the HOA after years of handling their complaints, wasn't swayed. "If you don't comply, I'll have to arrest you for non-compliance," he snapped, his tone icy, as he unhooked his handcuffs from his belt, the metal clanking ominously in the sweltering heat. Jake stood his ground, his heart pounding, paint still dripping from his brush onto the tarp below. "This is insane. I'm not repainting my house," he shouted, his voice echoing through the yard, the cicadas buzzing louder as if in agreement. Officer Tate stepped closer, his face set in a hard line, the handcuffs dangling from his hand, their metallic clank a chilling sound as he issued a warning. "Stop painting and pay the fine, or you're going to jail," he growled, his voice low, the heat of the day intensifying the tension. Walter handed the fine notice to a neighbor who had come out to watch, the paper crinkling as he returned to his pickup, its engine rumbling as he drove off, leaving Jake standing by his ladder, the blue paint on his house a bold but now threatened statement, the summer air heavy with the scent of confrontation. Jake couldn't let this go, not just for himself, but for every resident in Oak Ridge Hills who wanted to express themselves through their homes. Word of the incident spread through the neighborhood, shared during barbecues and whispered at the local hardware store. The residents, many of whom found the HOA's rules stifling, were outraged, and a group of neighbors, led by 40-year-old florist Amy Dawson, organized a protest to support him. The next afternoon at 2 p.m., dozens of residents gathered in front of Jake's house, their footsteps rustling the grass as they painted signs and banners in bright colors, the swish of paintbrushes and the clatter of cans filling the air, a vibrant stand against the HOA's control. Families joined in, their laughter mixing with the sound of painting. Children splashing colors on poster boards, a symbol of creative defiance, in the beige suburb. The protest caught the attention of the Oak Ridge Hills Press, which ran a story titled, "Man Fined $550 for Blue House. Neighbors Paint in Protest." The reporter's voice amplifying the community's anger through a local radio broadcast. Encouraged by the support, Jake decided to sue the HOA, hiring a lawyer, 45-year-old Laura Bennett, who specialized in property rights cases. Laura argued that the HOA's rule was overly restrictive and that the police had overstepped by threatening arrest over a civil dispute, her voice steady and commanding in the courtroom. The trial drew a crowd of Oak Ridge Hills residents, their footsteps shuffling as they filled the benches, their murmurs a quiet buzz of anticipation. Jake took the stand, his voice firm, as he recounted the day, his words carrying the weight of his passion. "I painted my house to make it ours," he said, his tone unwavering. "They can't take that away." Laura presented legal precedents protecting the right to choose exterior paint colors, her arguments sharp and compelling, the rustle of documents loud as she handed them to the judge. But Walter and the HOA board were unyielding. Walter claimed Jake's blue paint threatened property values and aesthetics, his voice gravelly and sharp, his fingers tapping impatiently on the table. Officer Tate defended the arrest threat, insisting Jake's refusal to comply justified his actions, his tone gruff and unapologetic. The judge, a 65-year-old known for upholding HOA authority, sided with the HOA, his gavel slamming down with a resounding thud that silenced the room. "The bylaws prioritize community standards," he declared, his voice booming, the echo lingering. Jake was ordered to pay the $550 fine, plus $3,000 in HOA legal fees, the verdict a devastating blow that left him staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The aftermath was grim. The HOA, emboldened by the ruling, banned all non-neutral exterior paint colors, announcing the new rule at the next meeting, Walter's voice echoing through the community center's speakers with a new fine of $750 for violations. Jake, financially strained, had to repaint his house a dull beige, the sound of Chloe's disappointed sighs a constant reminder of the cost. Oak Ridge Hills, once a place of potential vibrancy, became a battleground, with residents fearing the HOA's unchecked power. Jake put away his paint cans, his house now blending into the beige uniformity. The humid afternoons, a haunting reminder of the color he'd lost, the neighborhood's streets quieter without the splash of his cerulean blue. And so, a splash of color became a battle for justice in Oak Ridge Hills, Alabama. Was Jake wrong to paint his house blue, or did the HOA go too far with their rules? What do you think? Should a homeowner's creativity be banned for the sake of uniformity? Share your thoughts and join us next time for another tale of HOA madness. Until then, keep fighting for what's right. Thank you for listening.